You ever look up in the sky to see some birds flying around and think to yourself, I wonder what it's like up there? Well, the game The Falconeer lets you fly high on the back of a giant falcon, and even though it's great to be above it all, it's not all smooth flying. Unlike other bird games where you might play as a mischievous goose causing trouble on the ground, here it's more about serious battles in the skies.
Blow that bird out of the sky!
And honestly, this didn't quite live up to my expectations, and I can't recommend you spending time with it, even if you did manage to get this game for free. If you want to know why, stick around as I break everything down from what's good to what's not, and also everything in between. Now, before we get into it properly, I think it's very important to remember that this is a game made by one person. This solo developer, Tomas Sala, great profile pic by the way, my dude, has mentioned that almost everything was created and put together by himself, while occasionally getting advice and help from others regarding specific aspects of the game, which is very respectable and a huge accomplishment in my opinion. So, with all of that out of the way, what is this game all about? Well, The Falconeer is an open-world air combat game where you play as a warrior riding a giant falcon. You fly around the seas, taking on missions that involve dogfights, exploring, and delivering cargo. The game mixes aerial combat with exploration, and you can upgrade your falcon and weapons to become even more powerful. It's kind of like living out your sky pirate dreams in a beautifully crafted world.
You really do fight dirty.
Only sometimes. Sky pirates.
The game is available on all platforms, including VR, so if you've got a VR system, you might want to try it out. Alright, first, let's talk about the visuals. The Falconeer is absolutely gorgeous with a unique art style that reminds me a lot of Sea of Thieves. Both games share a similar setting with vast open environments and a strong focus on exploration and adventure. In Sea of Thieves, you're sailing the seas as a pirate. In The Falconeer, you're soaring through the skies on a giant falcon. This aerial perspective is fresh and exhilarating, making you feel like a sky pirate exploring uncharted territories. However, while The Falconeer provides a visually open world, its questline is much more linear. You can explore the beautiful skies and discover hidden secrets as much as you want, but if you want to follow the story, you're gonna have to stick to a specific path. This is different from the open-ended gameplay of Sea of Thieves, where you can freely choose your own adventures. Honestly, flying in this game is probably some of the most incredibly relaxing and satisfying experiences I've ever had in a video game. The dynamic weather, the vast open skies, and the detailed environments create a mesmerizing backdrop for your adventures. Sometimes I just found myself flying towards the sunset, as it's just almost meditative, letting you fully immerse yourself in the peaceful moments of this game. And the flight mechanics really shine during these relaxed moments, making the visuals and atmosphere the best parts of the game. Alright, I'm gonna talk about the tutorial honestly because it's not great.
Good luck. Morning, Greenhorn. Let's see you fly that warbird.
It left a really bad taste in my mouth right from the beginning. Look, I know in some games, like for example the Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, tutorials are intentionally left out because they want you to explore and learn through experience. But the Falconeer doesn't pull this off at all, and I'm not saying that there's absolutely no tutorial, by the way. I'm just saying that while you can fly almost anywhere, this game is very linear, right? So you need to follow the plot to progress, and if you haven't learned how to play properly, it gets very frustrating very quickly. The tutorial doesn't give clear instructions, leaving you to figure things out on your own, which doesn't work well for a linear game like this. Alright, let's talk about flight and combat mechanics. The flight mechanics are one of the game's strongest points. Flying feels great, especially when you're just scouting an area or traveling. It's easy to navigate, gain height, and increase speed. The controls are forgiving, at least on normal difficulty, making it very accessible for players who might not be experts at flying games, such as myself. Turning and twisting are smooth and responsive, and it really gives a satisfying experience. I highly recommend using a controller for the best experience though. The intuitive controls and responsive feedback make it very easy to perform aerial maneuvers, and the game doesn't punish you harshly for not being a god at the controls. But the combat mechanics, not so much. I mean, they're okay, but it's just not as satisfying as the flying. So in the first 3 chapters, for example, that I played on normal difficulty, I only failed missions twice. The first time was due to a glitch, and the second time is because I died during combat. And that's the only time I died during the game.
Cowards!
I imagine obviously playing on a higher difficulty would be more challenging, but the normal difficulty seems designed for those interested in the story rather than the combat. I do have to say that even if it is very easy, combat in the air can get pretty intense, unlike our ground-bound feathered friend who's more about snatching things and running away. Here you're in full-blown aerial dogfights. No honking your way out of these battles. The variety of enemies is very limited. Some enemies, like the mosquito-like bug things, are just annoying. They get very close to you, requiring you to make sharp turns to be able to hit them. Now this isn't particularly challenging, it's just very annoying and it gets frustrating. It's very important to be able to differentiate between a game that's being challenging and a game that's just annoying. Challenges are engaging and rewarding to overcome. I accept that, I love it, but when difficulty comes from annoyance, it quickly leads to boredom, and unfortunately the Falconeer leans more towards the latter in its combat encounters. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the story and the missions, and honestly this is the hardest part for me to talk about because, in my opinion, this is where the Falconeer falls completely flat.
Excellent. You did well. The pirates are gone, and with it, all the remaining loose ends.
So despite the enjoyment that I found in the flight mechanics and the visuals and even a little bit of the combat, the repetitive nature of the missions and the uninspired storytelling made it very hard for me to stay engaged. These missions are essentially the same objectives repeated over and over and over and over again, with little variety or depth. The writing and storytelling are bland at best, failing to draw you into the world or even make you care about the characters. The storyline tries hard, but sometimes it just feels like you're going from point A to point B with that much spice. So it's kind of like reading a restaurant menu that sounds fancy, but it just ends up serving you toast. You keep hoping the next mission will be the one, but it just never happens. And the voice acting is completely cringeworthy. The actors try too hard to sound like pirates, resulting in forced and unconvincing accents that really detract from the experience.
Fortress is under attack! It's a pirate raid! Come on, let us in!
The missions include traversal missions, which is essentially going from point A to point B. You've got delivery missions, that's just take an item and deliver it to a specific point. You've got combat missions that just basically go to a specific place and destroy all the things. And then you've got your escort missions, which is escorting really slow moving ships from one point to another. And in between all of that, you sometimes get like a mixture of these missions put together. But honestly, that's it. These repetitive tasks quickly become tedious, and even the side missions follow the same old thing. By the time I finished the 3rd chapter, I couldn't wait to put the controller down and just exit the hell out of the game. The lack of variety and engaging content made me lose interest very quickly, which really overshadowed the game's strengths in visuals and flight mechanics. If you're enjoying this review so far, why not hit that like button? It'd be like giving my Falcon a little extra boost. And if you want to join our crew and never miss out on our next adventure, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, it's more fun than escorting slow moving ships. Next, let's talk about the game and UI design. There is a noticeable lack of consistency here. Let's take the fishing mechanic for example. Despite it being introduced in one of the tutorials during the game, I never once felt the need to have to fish in my 5 to 6 hours of gameplay. The tutorial was so frustrating that I had to Google how to fish first because I thought it was going to be really important. Turns out, at least in normal mode, fishing is completely unnecessary. And also the mechanic is very poorly implemented, with no prompt to press the right button when you hit the water and a pool of fish, leaving you to have to guess.
2 hours later.
Another inconsistency is the feature that allows you to skip long traversal parts of missions to save you time. Now, I generally appreciate this, but the prompt to skip these sections is inconsistently offered. So in one mission, you can skip to your destination almost immediately, and in another one, you must make the entire journey on your own, both ways. This lack of consistency extends to many parts of the game. For instance, landing at different ports can be very hit or miss. Sometimes the prompt works immediately, while other times I have to circle the port for 5 fucking minutes, repeatedly pressing and holding the A button. And on top of all of this, adding to the frustration is how the prompts for landing and skipping traversal are placed in different locations, even though the button and action are exactly the same. I mean, this inconsistency caused me to miss the prompt to skip traversal so many times. I had to make the journey manually, which is luckily fine because the game looks gorgeous, but it's just annoying. And the lack of consistent prompts means that if you miss it, you're shit out of luck. The UI design is another weak point. It took me a long time to figure out my level, and the game doesn't even explain why a leveling system exists or is even necessary. You never know if you've leveled up or how to gain XP to level up. It seems like the developer included it just for the sake of having it, as honestly it doesn't impact the gameplay at all. Also, while you can buy items and upgrade your weapons, the game provides very insufficient information about them. The basic star rating system is completely lackluster and doesn't offer the depth or detail needed to make informed decisions about upgrades. The options menu is also very basic, providing very little level of customizability and accessibility options. This is a very poor design choice, especially for a PC port where players generally expect a higher degree of control over their gaming experience. Next, let's talk about how the Falconeer runs on the Steam Deck. I'm really pleased to say that the game is verified on the Steam Deck, so it's going to work right out of the box if you've purchased it on Steam, and the visuals and performance are top-notch. For those of you who've acquired the game through the Epic Games Store, like myself, you're going to need to use the Heroic Games Launcher or non-Steam launcher to download, install, and play the game. I've made a couple of guides on how to do this on my channel, and I'm going to put a link to all of the relevant links down in the description, right under the like and subscribe buttons for anyone who needs help. Now, let's just have a look at how the game has been reviewed online. OpenCritic gives the game the fair rating with a top critic average of 69%, nice, and 41% of critics recommending the game. On Metacritic, the game has received a mixed or average rating with a score of 65 based on critic reviews and a score of 5 based on user ratings. On Steam, the game received a very positive rating based on 252 Steam users' reviews, which in my opinion is a bit generous but also understandably fair at the same time. One Steam user who doesn't recommend the game said, quote, "I always commend a small dev for attempting to capture the magic of a Star Fox or a Crimson Skies, but this is floaty, slow, and imprecise, so while I can feel the inspiration, those other games from 20 plus years ago cast too long of a shadow for me to enjoy this one," end quote. Luke Kemp from PC Gamer gives the game a score of 78 out of 100 while saying, quote, "This is a game that usually lovingly lays you down in a rich atmosphere with a successful mixture of soothingly chilled out traversal and tense combat. I love that I can be soaring through the clouds alone 1 minute and attacking a giant robot crab with hit and run tactics the next," end quote. Andrew King from Games Radar gives the game 3.5 out of 5 stars and says, quote, "Mood aside, there just isn't much to do. Side missions fall into a few distinct categories, but there's little variety among them. That's basically all there is to do. Open world games tend to be at their best when they can offer a balance of main and side content, enticing you back and forth between the stuff you should be doing and the stuff you want to take a break and goof around with. But in the Falconeer, the only thing that felt like it was worth doing was the main missions," end quote. And finally, Bella Blondeau from The Gamer gives the game 2.5 out of 5 stars and says, quote, "I don't hate the Falconeer. I don't even think it's a particularly terrible game. There are great ideas here, and in the aesthetic department, it's a resounding success. However, it just needs more. It needs more polish, more reason to keep playing, and more reliable controls to navigate its interesting setting in," end quote. So, where does that leave us? The Falconeer is a game with a lot of potential, and it's clear that a great deal of passion went into its creation. The stunning visuals and enjoyable flight mechanics are commendable, especially considering it was developed by one person. However, the weak storyline, repetitive quests, and the underwhelming gameplay hold it back from being a truly great game. If you're looking for a visually striking flight experience, you might find some enjoyment here, but if you're after a compelling story and engaging gameplay, the Falconeer is not the game you want to be spending time with. It's always really tough for me to critique a game that has obvious passion behind it, but honesty is key here. Hopefully, future updates or projects from Tomas Sala can build on the solid foundation of flight mechanics and visuals. Thanks for watching, and FYI, if you're interested in reading a more in-depth review of this game, I posted it on my Patreon a few days ago, which is and will always be free, no paywall whatsoever. I always post my written reviews on Patreon a few days before the video version goes up on YouTube, so if that tickles your fancy, feel free to subscribe. You're going to find a link to my written review pinned at the top of the comment section, right under the like and subscribe buttons. Happy flying everyone, and I will see you in the next one.